Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to the Heartland Hot Dish podcast. This is where we come to the table and rediscover the connection and meaning to our food and culinary treasures of the Great Lakes region. Join us as we discover the traditions and stories woven into the fabric of the Heartland cuisine, from the iconic dishes that define the Midwest to the hidden gems waiting to be discovered. We'll take you on a mouth-watering journey through the diverse culinary landscape of the Great Lakes area. Get ready to indulge your senses and ignite your appetite as we explore the rich tapestry of flavors that make up the Heartland Hot Dish. OMG, we get to mine pasties today. The mining of the history of pasties, I'm just going to get to eat a pasty today. Daniel, you excited?
I am super excited.
Oh my God, I didn't even get your mic up so quickly. Look at that, Daniel. I was excited about my pasty I wanted to eat. Go for it again, Daniel.
I am super excited. I'm just going to scream that into the mic.
You can scream it into the mic.
Woo!
We get to delve deep into the world of pasties. I told Daniel and Lee, who's here today, that I have done zero history. This is maybe one of those subjects I know more about than is sensible. I come from Devon, England, if you don't know this, and there is a big battle between the two counties, which is a little bit like a state back home in the UK of Devon and Cornwall, and we fight about the history and who has the best pasty, and it usually crosses borders on a regular basis between Cornwall and Devon. But we've kind of got a special thing in front of us. We've got some of Zingerman's Bakehouse's pasties here. Back in the good old days, one of the bakehouse employees, I don't know their name. Do you know their name, Lee? The person who went over to the UK?
I don't.
Okay, so there is a scholarship that we do of the Zingerman's Great Food Group that all of the people actually on the podcast, they are members of. And we do a scholarship, and one of the folks from the bakehouse actually went all the way back to the UK, did research on pasties, brought back recipes. And I can tell you, as a Brit who adores pasties, had them as a childhood favorite on a regular basis with my HB sauce, that the pasty dough is better than most of the pasties I had back in the UK, which is not something I would normally sing from the rooftops. Fillings are different. They're not always the same. The experience you get from them are very different, and it's not that the filling is better or worse. You can just have a good battle there, but the fact that the pastry is so flaky, so good, without being fake, it's not trying to be a different dough and abusing its place. This is really quite authentic.
It's made with lard.
But it is made with lard.
But tell me about the sauce that you had growing up.
Oh, so this is not so fun here. So there's two names of it. So there's HP sauce, which is like a thicker version of A1 steak sauce, but not terrible. So steak sauce is somebody tried HP sauce and then tried to recreate it and then added too much water, is what happened to A1. But the other one's that's the off-brand cheaper version is one that's called Daddy sauce. It's just
It's problematic.
It's
right?
a problematic name. But in my childhood, you would have both, right? So the off-brand one was actually better. But the claim to fame of HP sauce or Daddy sauce was you could clean copper pots with it. It's so acidic that it's like cleaning with lemon juice or onto a pot. Right. But it's so... It's a fruity, tangy sauce. So if you think of an onion chutney or a green tomato chutney or a chutney that's blitzed down to a very pureed sauce, and it's thick in the way a cornstarch sauce has been thickened up. It's so good. It's a brown ketchup, basically, but it's got all the flavors of Worcestershire sauce kind of flavors in there.
But also in a sense much more acidic.
It's much more acidic, and it gives some kick. If you had a pasty with HP sauce, without HP sauce, a pasty is not a pasty. Because we were just off mic as we were setting up, and I walked in the room and they were talking about gravy in here. I'm like, what are you talking about, gravy?
I'm going to keep on talking about gravy. I'm always going to talk about gravy. If there's a chance to talk about gravy, I'm going to take that chance. It's like sour cream.
Yeah, go for it, Lee.
And I know who the person was who went to.
Who was it, Lee?
It was Anne Good.
It was so, she came back so... There are so many things that we've sent people off on wonderful experiences with the scholarship from the Great Food Group. This one came back with gold. It's so perfect. And the fact that the bakehouse executes on a regular basis, they've got them in the freezer, they've got them freshly baked on a specific day of the week.
Sunday and Monday.
Yeah. So, and I'm not we're going to talk about other pasties in the state of Michigan, but I just got to tell you, as far as an authentic British pasty dough, this is perfect. It may be better than most of the Brits ones out there.
You know how there are words that you can't say?
Yeah.
Pasties is one for me. I will.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, I always say pasties, and I know that that's a different thing.
That's a completely different
Right,
thing.
and it's also problematic. But I just wanted to say that going into it because I
Now I have to edit and maybe I put bleeps on when you say pasties instead of pasties.
I figure it's the same thing. It's just a long A.
Oh, okay, that's it. We're gonna say anytime we use the P word, it's all about pasties.
It's all about pasties today, right?
So clearly we know some of the history originally, and I know Lee's going to touch on it. But how about I see if I'm good, Lee, from my memory? I
Okay.
literally done zero research into this one. This is a Cornish tin miners, or mostly tin miners in the UK, and this was a hand food that you would take and put in your pocket and take with you. What's interesting that isn't done very often anymore is that a pasty originally had 3 things in it. So you'd have your breakfast, your main course, kind of your lunch, and then your dessert, all in the same pasty. And so there are 3 bits of it. They weren't divided. When you made your pasty, you put your fillings at like 2 corners and 1 in the middle. It was usually some kind of apple or fruit or hard fruit compote on the end. So like an apple pie. Pasty in the middle, which has rutabaga, stewed beef. You got carrots in there. You got onions. And then as the like starter, you'd have some kind of egg breakfasty thing in there. It was put in a pasty dough, which was a very hot water salt dough that was baked. The dough had very little need to be eaten. It was merely like a protective layer. You weren't putting this in a tissue. Your dirty hands were all over this dough, and you were really just eating the thing inside.
Do you know what you were mining back then?
Tin. All
Tin.
tin
It was all
miners.
tin.
As far as I know where these came from.
Mhm.
What's actually really interesting, there's a variation on this, which maybe predates the pasties, and this is where if anyone in the Brits are listening, I'm going to get some hate. There's something called a conch, and if you go to the Great British Bake Off, I think they had an episode where they do that, and it's more of a cylindrical thing than a pasty.
Oh, I think I've seen that. Right?
Yeah. So I think that this this beautiful crescent, half arch thing, was definitely more of a slightly more elaborate version, and it makes sense that the other one kind of came first. But for me, that rutabaga is the fond memory much more that's in there than any of the other ingredients that sit inside the pasty.
That's fascinating because rutabaga is such a divisive flavor.
Well, I found it fascinating as a vegetable as a chef because it was one of those first ones I learned that people put wax on the outside to protect it. Sorry, I promise we're getting to the fun things in a minute, but like, this is fun. Like, to protect a vegetable, they would literally melt beeswax on the outside. And now it's like a commercial grade something else. But back in the day, in order to preserve rutabaga over the winter, you would dip it in hot beeswax and then you put it up for the season and it stays. And rutabaga, you would think as a kid, I would have hated. Like, it's basically like a radish, like a big old radish. But when it gets cooked with some carrots and it takes on some kind of sweet, savory kind of flavor, I'm a winner all day long in that world.
Because there are no carrots in this one.
I know.
Right.
And like that's the bit where like you can't hate on any pasty. Every pasty back home in the UK, especially over here, very, very different. There's a lot of ham pies out there. You can go to South Africa. I've lived there. There's Australia, New Zealand ham pies. There's many variations of the filling. To me, if it doesn't have a rutabaga in, you've kind of lost the pasty game on me. I think the bit that I always struggle with people who make pasties is how well they've cooked the meat that's in it. Because sometimes the meat can be a little chewy, because sometimes it's meant to be like the cheaper cuts, and it absolutely was. But it was cooked to a way where it was almost fully a party. It was not really ground beef at this point. It's very finely chopped, some kind of rough cut meat that was stewed down and cooked, and then it was put inside that pasty. Does this make some sense?
This makes plenty of sense.
How did I do, Lee, on our history so far? And then you Americans like, oh, look at me, I've got a pasty. Let's go to the UP.
Well,
I also wonder where the carrots went.
You didn't mention. I'm looking at the recipe for the Bakehouse's beef pasty, and it includes sirloin tip is the meat, and
that's some fancy meat right there.
And then also diced beef suet.
Oh, suet is so. To be clear, back in the day, I'm eating a pasty. Just so we're clear, this one's going to be a lot of chomping. The pasty original beef suet that you would get would be chopped up suet back in the day, historical ones. But in the UK, we have a box suet that you can get. And it's like grated pellets. And it doesn't sound very appealing. but it has a very like clean beef flavor that you put in things. So when we make Christmas puddings, you buy like grated or pelleted beef suet.
Just to
on
give you
original.
that beefy fat.
Right, and it's
yeah.
really good. So absolutely, beef fat is in there. Didn't mention it, but yes, it's got potatoes diced in it. It's got onions diced in it. But this is
And
one
it
of
has
those.
it does have it has finely shredded rutabaga,
Yeah, that
diced
should be
onion,
diced.
dried thyme, salt and pepper.
Yeah, the one that's so for us it was always diced. So your rutabaga would be diced. It would have onions. This is one of those where like garlic would be a good addition, but it definitely was never in there. Garlic was like a much more expensive, fancier like vegetable added into the pasty world of what it is.
Well, and I think just to step back from this a second, we need to also say that pasties are dumplings. That they fall within.
I disagree.
I believe that they fall within the worlds of dumplings because it's food stuffed in other food.
Oh,
It's a very large dumpling.
I'm just going to say that Daniel has an obsession with turducken, and for some time we're going to make a giant turducken with him with like 7 different breads stuffed inside each other.
That would be
I
amazing.
hear you. It is all the same things as a dumpling, and instead of it being boiled and sautéed
Or
it's just
fried, it's baked.
fried, it's baked.
Yep.
The ingredients in the center are very similar to what you would have as a dumpling out there. I think for me, some of that difference at the meat side of it, of dumplings I normally has the filling is a little wetter. This is definitely a drier. I mean, us Brits, it's not as wet of a filling of what's in there, and it's huge. I mean, we went big with our dumpling. How about that for the way of the world?
Oh yeah, no, that's fantastic.
I think that the lattice and the lattering of all of those doughs for us, it becomes really important of what it is. I think when I think of the pasty doughs in our world, the size does matter, and I want a relatively low meat to pasty ratio in my world. Like I love the pastry, but I want a lot of that filling. But the filling can make or break a pasty. While the dough's super important and the bakehouse absolutely nails it, the filling at the bakehouse, because of the grated rutabaga, more than anything, and I mean this, more than anything, kind of spoils my world in that place because it's kind of wrong. Like in my head, I want that textural dice of the rutabaga.
Oh, right.
And the potatoes in there, and it makes me think, oh, I'm going to get a quick bite of rutabaga. And then
But it's not.
But it's not.
But
It's
it's not,
always
right.
potato. Every time it's a potato in there in my world.
Right, and my hunch is, and maybe Lee knows this, right? But my hunch is that it has to do with Americans' distaste for rutabaga, and that by shredding it, you're hiding it. You're still getting that flavor in there, but you're not accentuating it.
Do you ever hear it called a Swede?
No.
Swede? See, rutabaga back home is Swede.
Huh.
It's not rutabaga. I think rutabaga gave the impression that it was a radish, and it kind of scared a lot of kids off. And by making it Swede, made it sound more interesting. I have no idea where that history comes from.
It certainly has a scary name.
And it's a big old vegetable. Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't get small rutabagas.
No.
They're genuine. And if you're gonna have it in your pantry, because it does stay pantry safe, or you've got it in your fridge, it's taken up a lot of room, and you can't really get it any other way. So I think as a consumer, it's not a vegetable you normally get home, right, and take to your house. I don't even know, like supermarket wise, whether I come across it on a regular basis.
I think I would only get them when they would come in our farm share when doing the CSA.
Oh, okay. All
Right.
right. Good. Because I mean, I can order them all day long as a chef.
Sure.
But I don't think I've ever seen them like at a Bush's or a Meijer or a Whole Foods, any of those. Like I've not come across maybe a Whole Foods, maybe in the season, the right time of the year. But rutabagas back home were year round. Like my mother would make carrot and rutabaga puree. I know this is a pasty show, but the really a pasty is a rutabaga vehicle.
Right. Well, I think that makes sense, right? Like to talk about the rutabaga, and also specifically getting a taste of it when you're young as as a puree, because I think that's one of those things that you
And it was
need.
sweet. It would
Right.
it would hint to you that this could be something more than just like a radishy sharp flavor. It was a sweet flavor that would come through.
Because there are pasty places that make pasties with no rutabaga.
Then they're not a pasty.
Well, no, because they're trying to stay in business. right. They have them with rutabaga, and you have the option of getting it with rutabaga or without, because if they offered it only with rutabaga, Americans would stop.
Is that right? There are rutabaga, non-rutabaga pasties. Those are
Yes,
options. That's a thing.
in the UP.
Wow. See,
I know.
I've never actually made it. I know. Sorry, everyone. I just haven't. I'll be honest. I've never made it across the bridge.
Oh. Yeah, so that was one of the things
I've had pasties brought to me, but I've never made it up there.
It was one of the things I was most excited about on my trip to the Upper Peninsula, and I've at this point only been once. And I was hoping to get more pasties in me, but the family was not complying. We had lots of things to do.
And did you have it with a sauce when you were up there?
I had it with gravy.
Oh, so weird. So so when you've had a pasty, has it been kind of the temperature we're eating the one right now? So we've got very kindly baked some of the bakehouse's pasties for us to eat, which is, if you hear any of the background noises, it's us quietly eating / not really that quiet.
Not so quiet.
Not so quiet. We're all into the pasty.
Don't do anything quietly.
Would you have it hot or room temperature?
I believe it was a little bit warm.
So we would have quite hot pasties. So they had those like even fish and chip shop kind of experience where you put them in those like super high speed ovens. They weren't microwaves, but like they were very, very hot with a big fan.
Convection ovens.
Yeah, little tiny convection ovens, back even in the 90s, those little guys. And it would come out really hot, and you would serve it with fridge cold condiment. And the fridge cold condiment was HP sauce, daddy sauce, or ketchup. And it had to be icy cold. So you had to have the juxtaring opinion of that very cold condiment or the very hot pasty in the same time.
Right, and you like that with the cold butter and the hot toast.
Oh, I do.
I know.
I'm definitely. I like the bit of everything in that world.
Sure.
I do think gravy would not be bad.
Gravy's fantastic.
I cannot think of a time I've ever had a pasty back home with gravy.
Okay.
I've had it with curry sauce because I've had it at a fish and chip shop.
Also
curry
sounds
sauce.
lovely.
Right, curry sauce for the win. Always the good way to go. But a naked pasty by itself just isn't quite right. I know that we don't have a condiment here, and it's totally fine. Lee, I still appreciate it deeply. But the fact that I don't have something to dip it in for those juxtaring like hot and cold makes it feel slightly wrong.
I mean, I blame you for that. I mean, you have the do you have HP sauce at home?
I've probably got some in my car.
See?
There's probably some.
Paces away.
Well, I will say I like the Bakehouse's beef pasties dipped or spread with the Bakehouse's ranch dressing.
Oh, ranch, it's come back again.
Yeah. It's a wonderful combination, I think.
Go for
And
it.
I will say, I agree that rutabaga is can be a much maligned vegetable, but I grew up with it because it was my father's favorite vegetable, and we had it all the time. So
Why was it your dad's favorite vegetable? Like, how did he experience it to start with?
he would, we would cook it and then mash it and have like mashed rutabaga.
Just straight rutabaga.
Just straight rutabaga.
See, my mother always mixed it with carrots, but butter and honey and thyme. Thyme was maybe a later addition, but I remember always being made its way into things. There was a belief back in the day, I think, like it was like the probiotic of vegetables in my childhood before that was a thing.
Yeah, well, my dad, we probably added butter to it, but mashed rutabaga was a must-have on the Thanksgiving table.
It barely holds the butter. Like, it's not a potato. Like, it doesn't really want to bind with anything. It kind of stays, even when you mash it with carrots, there is your clear division of the rutabaga, the carrot, and the butter. Like, if you've ever had carrot and sweet puree from us, we make it with our pie and mash sometimes. You can see the butter separating. The carrot and the Swede look different, and they have not blended together. And there's something kind of sweet and lovely about that in its world.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
So when we talk about like that grated in there, it's just hard for me. It feels more of like the convenience versus the experience of what it is. Because when you dice, we've always had to boil rutabaga and then put it in a pasty filling of what it is. And that's the bit where I think when you think of like how the rutabaga is, if the dice is in there, I think you'd lose a lot more Americans.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I don't want to play in this game anymore.
Right. I'm impressed that the
It's
bakehouse
even in there?
includes rutabaga in the first place. Right. That right. They would probably sell more if there was less, but it would not be traditional, as you said.
Sure.
Right.
When you've had the pasties up in the UK, where did you eat? Like, where were the locations you went to?
So it was really just one, and it was on the way out because I was like, we've been in here we were only there for a few days, and it's like we've been here for a few days. There are so many different things to eat, and only so much capacity that I had to eat them. And pasties are not small, and I hate waste. Right, so it was a place called Hiawatha pasties. I was going to say pasties. And it was on the way out. So I was just like, look, I was driving and pulling over the car. I've got to stop here because this may be the last chance to get one in the UP. And it was a small shop, and I believe they also had an option that had no rutabaga, but I went full traditional.
And is that all they did?
And I believe I think they also had like ice cream.
Because I feel like most of the UK pasty shops are pasty shops.
Mhm.
Like that's what you get.
Right.
You might get a fish and chip shop that has a pasty.
Yeah.
But that's not the game in
Nope.
that world.
And this is what's right on their sign. It's a Hiawatha Pasties, right? And that's that's the draw.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Well, the pasty shop that has the most connection to the old mining tradition it's called Laurie's, and it's in Marquette.
Yeah, they've heard of lorries
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
Like I've heard of lots of good things about lots of different pasty shops up there. So the UP or Michigan is copper town, right?
That's
Like
correct.
that's all the mining. It's all copper mining that were miners for what this was. Did it make its way over here, Lee, as the pastry was better, or was it still just a protective layer? As far as like when it made it to the UP in the state of Michigan, like had the pasty evolved to be tasty pastry, or was it still just a vehicle?
Well, there's one of two minds. I think probably that tradition of them not eating the crust, but the research I did talked about how they would make the pasties, they would mark the right corner of the pasty, and that would be the and they would eat it down, and they would only hold it with that corner because their hands, when they were in the mines, would filled with arsenic, so they would hold it in one hand, and then eat it all the way down, and then toss the corner down the mine shaft.
Really?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that's consistent with the British.
Yeah, I've
Yes.
heard that story too. The other
Right.
one was that they would eat it straight out and they would flap the pasty over and just eat straight, like face in pie.
Wait, I'm not sure I understand the visual there.
So if you take the curve and the plait, you
Okay.
just peel off the top layer. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Dirty pasty.
Right.
It's like eating, I don't know, like things from the middle instead
Right.
of from the end down.
It's kind of like the aluminum foil baked around, right?
Yep. That was a whole thing. And it was when they got really dirty in their pockets and what they had. And they wrap them up in rags and stuff like that. But in general, sometimes they get really, really dirty.
Oh yeah. So no, I can see that if it was going in your pocket, just
Yeah.
tear it open.
And we were
eat it,
dealing with
right.
tin, which is still, I mean, there's lots of things down there. It wasn't quite so dangerous.
Right. Copper is pretty nasty too.
Copy's pretty nasty and
Right.
it's water waters. So the one I had heard was Muddlens or Mud-Oons pasty shop. That was the one that people have brought me back before. I'm like, you've got to try this. This is the real pasty shop. Have you heard of the fight between Cornwall and Devon at all? Pasty World? Daniel? Like it's a big
No.
It's like the big battle. Like the two of us, because all you ever hear is Cornish pasties back home, which is the county next to me, which in reality is more like a state for what we deal with. Devon pasties and Cornish pasties. Cornish pasties are way more famous, but are terrible. Devon pasties are way better, and ours are better because our meat stew is so much better. Our meat filling is killer, whereas their meat filling is a little disappointing in the way of the Cornish and the way their pasty is. Sometimes their pastry is better, but our filling is by far and away the better place because we had a lot more better cows versus the Cornish. And where they down in there.
Well, the Upper Peninsula tradition is very much based on Cornish pasties because it was the Cornish miners that came over here. So.
Yeah, and the Cornish miners were real Devon miners at the same time. Like, we have the same tin miners. It's just, it would be the difference of like the UP versus, I don't know, like just over the bridge. Like we are
No,
kissing.
you're right next.
We're
door
not
to
even
one
kissing
another.
cousins. We're like married in cousins at this point. Like, there was no separation between the Cornwall and Devon at that point back in the day of where it is. So for you in this like pasty world for you, Lee, as being one of those fun things from the bakehouse, what it is, what makes it so special for you as kind of that Midwest food?
I like the real connection to Michigan, and I like the whole sort of melting pot aspect of it, and how immigrants coming over here have really shaped our food culture in so many unique and interesting ways. And I like the fact that we've adopted all those different traditions and then have made them our own at the same time. So that's
I feel like I've seen pasties further and wide. I remember just seeing Rohit. He's one of the managers over at ZSN. He was with his family somewhere else in the US today, or like a couple of days ago, and he posted a pasty. Like, it doesn't have to be just a Midwest thing. Like, it doesn't even have to be a pure Michigan thing. Like, I've seen them far and wide. Like, I've seen them in Nevada.
But are they our pasties? Are they the ones with the rutabaga, or is it just things in a pastry crust that get called pasty?
Yeah, maybe. I
Right.
definitely had pasties in Nevada that have rutabaga in them.
Okay.
So, yes,
Mhm.
I've had a pasty.
Mhm.
Was it good? No. Was it a pasty? It was definitely still in pasty land of what it is. And I think that the experience of them being a little further far wide is probably exports of us as a population from the Midwest spreading a little further out is how I imagine why they're in different spots.
And I think that makes sense, right? It's things like buffalo wings or Philadelphia cheesesteaks. They're still not
Sure.
right. These lovely things from the Upper Peninsula haven't spread that far and wide. They're not that popular yet. But with people like us talking about it and people from Michigan moving away, right? Hopefully they will grow in popularity because they're delightful.
How do you feel about the top over plat versus the side plat? Have you ever seen a top plat?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So the ones from the bakehouse are like flat and the plat's on the top crest.
Okay.
But then you can have like one that's like a I don't know, like a cylinder, tails off, but the plat goes over the top, right down the middle.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, you mean like the
The ridge.
The
right,
ridge
right.
goes
The
right
ridge.
over the top, like over the equator of
Sure.
the pasty. How do you feel about
I'm only familiar with this.
the top ridge ones are like the fancy restaurant version of the
Yeah.
pasty back home, but then all the goo oozes out the top and goes. Then you get like some of those like melty bits that come over the top of the pasty.
It's funny because when you talk about this, you know where my brain goes.
Yeah.
Do you?
No.
Dumplings.
Oh,
All
God.
right. But specifically Asian dumplings, right? And Chinese dumplings because
The different plat of
right.
where you're
well,
at.
because those are called the shark fin dumplings, where they have it on the top, whereas you'll have
Yep.
the sort of the pot stickers, where it is more like this along the bottom edge. Right, and I know that in that East Asian cooking that there are different fillings that are designed for different dumpling shapes, and I don't
It's
know
like
if
those
that's
pasta people who like I made the shape to hold this sauce. It's the same kind.
right. Exactly, and perhaps is there a British history of using different fillings in those different shapes?
I think we have different plats for different locations, but not really a different filling. Like
Oh, that's interesting.
don't-
right.
like the cheese pasty, which I know the bakehouse makes one,
Mhm.
but the cheese pasty is kind of a newer evolution of having a vegetarian option.
Right.
I don't think there was such a thing back in the good old days. What I remember from the plats was it was a way to define your pasty versus the other pasty. So the plat would be different, so you knew whose pasty you were getting.
Right. You're going to the posh shop, so you're getting the
Yeah,
right.
yeah, what it is.
Well, and what we've done at the bakehouse. So before, not the plat issue, but the miners would they would bring pasties that had a piece of dough or something that had their initials on it, or it identified exactly whose pasty it was. And so what we've done at the bakehouse is that the beef one has a Z for Zingerman's, and then the cheese one has C. And so there's a long story about not so much the changings in plats as a way to identify. It was just really important that people ate their own pasties and that they didn't eat other people's pasties.
I'll eat anyone. I hopefully come steal the rest of the pasty that's over there that I can't get to right now. There's definitely, I had a quick Google search into the world, and there's definitely a big push in Wisconsin
Mhm.
of the pasty world, and Utah, interestingly, comes up as a place that pasties are made
Utah is
with.
interesting.
Right? It must be a quick emigration out there of the right Europeans that got to the right spot.
Maybe salt mining.
Right, and I think it probably is the salt mine. I guess it's that minor convenience food of what it is.
Right.
It still says it was still using the same kind of thing, and it just says vegetables and seasoning. It doesn't specifically talk about the rutabaga in there. How do you feel about those weird and wacky varieties? Because pasty shops over here have the weird and wacky flavors in them. I've seen the cheeseburger pasties.
Right.
Or Lee's shaking
Lee's
her
making a face. Yeah.
No, I like the traditional one.
Right. Right. For me, it was important to try the traditional one, to try the rutabaga, see what it was about, because it was that combination of flavors and ingredients
Fan or not fan?
was unusual to me. It was not a thing that I had grown up with. It was not a thing that I was familiar with. Right. It made a lot of sense, right, to have root vegetables, have these really sort of inexpensive value,
Yep.
high nutrition type things, starchy, stick with you.
And the rutabaga was there to kind of hide the kind of crappy meat that you normally put in the pasty.
Sure, right. And so it was important for me to try the original, and I love the original. I think the original is great. I think it's even better with gravy, but I am also open. I'm not so locked in, and I'm like this with all. Maybe not all foods.
You're an equal opportunity food.
But many foods. I'm trying to think of the foods that I'm really sort of stickler about, that it has to only be one way. Maybe some of the Italian foods. Right.
I've had a chicken tikka pasty and been just as happy. And the reason I say that is that at least if that pasty shop should continue, I would rather they were doing the variety of them to get more people in the pasty shop, to then keep the traditional one alive. I think the rutabaga side of the pasty is interesting, that it is finding a much harder survival rate, even back home, that most kids aren't experiencing as kids, as a regular vegetable. It's been taken out of our diets as Brits. I think the same over here. It's not in our diets on a regular basis. It is fading away. So if those pasty shops can survive by having cheeseburger or buffalo hot wing pasties, it is funny that we just did the podcast about pierogies, and it's the same kind of flavors. As you said, it really is just a big baked dumpling.
Right, and I think I agree. I think if you are going to be calling yourself a pasty shop, it's important to pay homage, at least a token homage, to sort of the traditional where it came from. Right. I think the same is true for even for buffalo wing flavors. Right. Like if you're going to be a place that makes lots of different flavors of buffalo wings, you should have a Franks and butter option, because that's the OG.
I do think that it's interesting that at least over here, none of the condiments have really made their way to the pasty world. It is just, here's a pasty, have a good day. Like, it hasn't been like, and you should really eat this with some kind of sauce.
Well, I wonder how the miners, right? I feel like that's a thing that probably would have gotten lost in the just migration, just the natural migration. Just think about what shipping was like. You wouldn't be able to. It would be really expensive to be able to get the HB sauce.
It's if you want a good place to get HB sauce in the UK, in the US, especially here in the Midwest, World Market.
Oh.
World Market salad. It's not cheap, and it comes in a little glass jar, and it's a bit of a pain. 110% worth dipping your pasty in some HB sauce.
That's interesting, right? And I think there's probably some opportunity for some folks to to bring that to bear in restaurants.
When you experience like going to the UP for it, because it is a big thing over here. Like, I was always surprised when I first came. I'm like, oh, pasties have really made it in Michigan. Like, it's a big thing. I hear about it, and people will go and have one on their vacation, but it's more of like a novelty, like going to Mackinac and getting Mackinac fudge. It's not like, oh, I really want a pasty, more of, oh, that's a nice novelty. Whereas with the bakehouse, they sell a lot of them, like as a food source, like as a good lunch, or even as the dinner, because it's huge.
And I think that more than anything is the drawback of the pasty, right? Is its size and its caloric load, right? Because dear God, that's big, right? Like,
it was built to keep you going in the whole game show.
I know, and if I was mining all day, like, I would need something like this just to have the calories I need to live. But as
recording a podcast, you probably don't need this much.
No, right. And I think I think there's also an opportunity, for folks to make smaller. Actually,
See, therein lies the problem with it, because I need a decent filling to pasty to
yes,
like
they
don't. I've had mini pasties, and while that's fine,
it's not satisfying.
It's not. I need a lot more filling, and like that slightly soggy layer of the pastry where it's kind of rehydrated from all the stuff in the inside that's leached into the pastry dough is a good thing.
I feel like half-sized.
I could do it.
Right, I feel like half-sized would probably be perfect.
The plat is very thick. Like, you get a lot of pastry just in the plat.
Right, and the pastry is delicious. So you or Kieran were saying that that I'd probably not be as into the cheese one, and I am indeed missing the beef a little bit. And while I love the lard dough, I'm also a butter guy, and the butter crust is delicious.
Oh, see,
It's delicious. It's right. Right.
Sure.
It makes me weep sad and bitter tears that people would take this crust and throw it down the mine.
for hundreds.
They would
of
only
years.
they'd throw a little corner of it.
Even the corner, right?
I just I love the idea that back in the day there was like the sweet treat at the end of your pasty that you'd have like the little apple pie at the end.
That is fun.
I wish that was something that was. I don't think that's over here at all. There
No.
are
Yeah,
pasty
right.
shops still in the UK that do it, and it's kind of a nod to it because it's a very small corner.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like, oh, cool. Like that gives you like I just want a little sweet treat at the end of my meal in that world.
I think that's fabulous, right?
Kind of end that piece of like aged digestion because there's nothing that's aiding it in any other way.
I will say, yes, this is the size, but what I just cut it in half. I eat half at one point, and then I'll eat the other half a day or two later. Throw it in the oven and heat it up, and it's wonderful.
I can't not eat a whole pasty. I'd sit here and finish it. Like once I'm in, and I'm not going anywhere else.
I'm very envious of people who could do that. That people can eat half a burrito, or even a half of a sandwich, and put the other half away for later.
Yeah, and
right.
just it's now or never. Like I don't know, like a twice baked pasty. I'm not really. I do like that the bakehouse will sell them frozen, and you can also most of the pasty shops will sell you like a big old batch. Like it's like your pot pie season where you can get a whole batch of them frozen and bring them back to bake. That's a good place to be.
Yeah.
And it's solid for that as a quick winter warmer and be able to bake up in that world.
Well, these bake up frozen. I baked them up this morning
Yeah.
before I came, and they in a 400 oven for 50 minutes.
So, have you experienced any of those UP pasty shops or any other pasty shops out there, Lee?
Not in a very long time. I haven't been up there in.
But you did it as a child, like pasty shops were part of your childhood at all?
No, I wouldn't say that, but certainly the times that we did go up to the UP, we would get pasties
For sure.
at some place.
And you've had one.
And I've had
I've had them delivered to me on a regular basis. Like people think, oh, he's a Brit. I'll bring him a pasty from the UP and where it is. I have to say, like, the ones that I've enjoyed the most have been the novelty ones more than the ones trying to be the traditional. Because the filling, I can only think of the two that I really love, and they are the ones from back home, and they're very, very, very specific. Like, I want that filling, and nothing else will do as far as the traditional. And this isn't a knock on the bakehouse, the ones I've had from the UP, but like that beef filling is very specific for me. Like, it's such a time travel device for me to my childhood that I want to go back to that.
Well, this is the pizza cognition theory all over again, right? That the thing that you grew up with is the flavor that
Did you mention the cut of beef that you find in the UK?
Oh, you've entered the world of where we have to talk different cuts of meat. When you talk sirloin and top round, though, we speak a variation of a very similar language. So if I say silver top or silver side,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
right? And so then you lose every cognition. When I first moved to the US, and I'm like, "Can I get a silver side of beef?" And they're like, "You what?" I'm like, "Well, this cut," and then I would point on it, and there isn't even a cut that speaks to exact same word over here, and that becomes very annoying. So I would say, like, if I was to do it over here, and not the cut that was traditional, because the cut that was traditional, Lee, to be clear, would have been the crap. It was all the sinewy bits, all the stuff that was left over. It was not the good cuts.
From what quadrant?
So you would be in the sorry. Well, I said it. From the ass of the cow is where we're heading, and also down the leg, most of the leg muscle. And so silver side, top side is mostly like leg muscle meat in that realm. For us, I think if you were in the US and you want to make it look a good chuck round, would be a good place to start. And then you want to cook.
But then you're going up to the shoulder.
I know. Well, that's like over here. Once you get into the actual cuts, they're a lot harder to deal with. And I'd rather you had a much more flavorsome, enjoyable meat piece. I think getting the tenderness out of some of the tougher cuts requires a lot more time and maybe not even skill.
Just time.
It takes a lot more time that you're probably not willing to play in that game or what it is.
I mean, who doesn't have a pressure cooker?
Sure, the pressure cooker is the
Right,
game. I do think that that's the bit where a lot of home pasty makers won't take the time to cook the beef right, and they'll saute it quick. They'll make that filling. I don't know. There's a lot of home pasty makers. I feel like that is something you go out and buy.
It's a good question. Right.
Like I don't know. Like as a Brit, I totally make my own pasty.
Sure.
Because I can't not have that diced rutabaga. I need that diced rutabaga in my world.
And when this is a very chefy question, when you're dicing your rutabaga for pasties, how precise are you being? Are
Very
you being
precise,
Oh,
obsessive.
interesting.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
the dice of the
right.
potato, and honestly,
because I like for French, like I would get that right, and I'm not knocking the Brits, but like this seems like it's a pretty
No, this
sort
is the
of
thing.
rough hewn sort of food.
I think that absolutely back in the day, yes,
Right.
but as a child, I feel like the mechanical dice was probably what we all experienced as kids in the UK. So there was
right
probably
industrial.
an industrial dice,
Perfect,
and
yeah.
so that is my childhood. And honestly, I have to say, and you made me experience some emotional feelings about pasties more. The potato that we specifically have is really tough because over here you don't have a Maris Piper potato, and a Maris potato is a very different potato.
Is that a waxy or starchy?
It's a starchy potato,
okay.
and then you've got a King Edward potato, and we'd have both of them in there, and
mhm.
that becomes again like you can't have that, and that's okay. I think that if you talk about pasty producers and hey, folks that are listening, you've got your favorite pasties in the UP or in Wisconsin or even out in Utah. Maybe there's a listener in Utah that's like, we've had great pasties. I'd be interested if those pasty shops really go after a specific variety of potato. The potato structure was really important. Like I want it to hold up.
So what do you use now?
So the one I've used is Green Mountain potatoes. They're a
Okay.
little harder to get.
Mhm.
Like that is not an easy potato to get. It's a pretty seasonal one. It was the one potato growers in the US would grow for themselves,
Mm.
but they weren't commercially grown. The size is different.
Where did you find that?
When I my lovely sweet Mark Beowulf, who started Coleman Farms agricultural department many eons ago, was a big potato snob. He made me feel like a 2-year-old child once. He goes, Kieron, you get hundreds of attempts on a weekly basis to cook potatoes. I get to grow potatoes once a year. Don't mess up my potatoes. And he was a real big potato snob. And he introduced me to many fun varieties. And I was forever looking for my Maris Piper potato and my King Edward's potato, just something that was similar. And the closest thing I found was a Green Mountain potato. But they grow really weird. They're pretty susceptible to pests. And so you'd have a small patch that like a Midwest potato grower would grow and put aside, but the rest were commercially grown, Idaho generic potatoes in that world of what it is. But that structure holding up, I feel that most of the pasties I've had in the US are much more mushy potatoes that are just going to disintegrate, whereas I want that rutabaga held up. Because I seriously have some emotion here, but like the surprise and the disappointment I always have with a pasty, but the surprise as a child of, is this a potato? Is this a rutabaga? Right?
Right.
Like in your, there was like,
Yes.
because they were diced identical.
Yeah.
And you kind of like, oh, nope. Okay, that's the rutabaga. I'm here. I'm back.
Yeah.
And you get woken up, and then you have your next piece. Then you get a little bit of chewy beef in there, and I feel like that was a big part of the experience of eating a pasty back in the day. And they really did hold up. Like the beef was cooked really well, but the potatoes and rutabaga were just cooked right.
So if you're going to recommend for our listeners a potato that they can find,
I don't know. Green
Right.
Mountain potato. Go
Yeah.
find somebody. Go
Yukon Gold.
Yukon Gold would be fine.
Right.
I would say like your best bet would probably at a farmer's market. Go find a potato grower who's selling you potatoes. I bet they grow Green Mountain potatoes for themselves.
For themselves.
100%.
Interesting.
Any good potato grower that I know of in Michigan that I've experienced has usually got a small crop for themselves.
But your guy wasn't going to give you any.
Oh no, I got some. I got some, and then I started growing them myself because it was a battle to get hit. Because I was literally eating his potatoes at that point of where it is. They are just finicky. They're just not the happiest potatoes in the world to grow, but they taste amazing. Because the potato beetle love them. Like they are like. You've got to move that potato. If you ever grow potatoes, you've got to move them every year to keep the potato beetles at bay in your garden. You can't put them back in the same place.
Right. So if anybody out there is growing them, please let us know.
Yeah, bring us your seed potatoes of Green Mountain potatoes.
We will buy them from
if
you.
you've got a pest-resistant varietal that's grown or has changed over the years that keeps the potato beetle away, go good. I'll grow them in the 5-gallon pickle buckets from the deli. Because you can stack them up, and I've cut the bottom out of a second bucket and made them really tall to get a high yield out of them. But I don't get much poundage out of them. But they go to very special things. They go to my fish and chips at home, and they go to Pasties, and that's the only place they go.
But for home.
Just for home.
Just for home.
So where do they get their name, Green Mountain?
That I don't know. That would be something for my history major to research for me over there.
Well, there's the Green Mountains in Vermont.
Oh, that would make my sister very happy if I was eating
know.
Vermont. She lives in Vermont now in the world.
But they are an American strain of potato, yes.
As far as I know, they're not. If they are a varietal of a European potato, which all potatoes were American at some point, I imagine that they have changed over the years and become enough over here. The Maris Piper and King Edward's back home are super normal. I have tried. Sorry, U.S. government. Don't deport me. I still have a green card. But I have tried many times to sneak in both of those seed potatoes, and every time they've been taken. I mean, rightfully so.
Right, yeah.
Rightfully so. But I have tried to sneak in some Maris Piper and King Edward seed potatoes. They probably are here somewhere. And if you have those, I will pay exceptionally good money for some seed potatoes and keep them going forever. They are so different because those are the potatoes that you have at fish and chip shops. Mm-hmm. Those are the potatoes you put in there. I think that getting those seed potatoes would be an amazing experience. Go for it, Lee. You look like you found some research, some quick research on my favorite potatoes.
So, the Green Mountain potato, developed by Orson Alexander of the University of Vermont in 1878, released 7 years later. And then I found, let's see.
Looks like your sister might be able to give you the hookup.
She might actually be able to get me some.
That's amazing.
They are really good. I will bring you some in. And they keep, what's actually good about them, while they are not very pest resistant, they keep really well. So if you put them in sand or wood chips in a root cellar, they're super happy.
So while Lee's doing this research, I'm going to make you a pitch for you.
Okay.
Which is in the idea of doing pasties and non-traditional ones after Thanksgiving. A Thanksgiving one with your gravy.
Okay. See, I could get on board a stuffing turkey gravy pasty.
Oh my God! Right, and I'd throw some rutabaga in there too, because that would be as a nod and an homage to
Okay, I'll do a good version of that.
All right.
But I will tell you what my chef brain went to instantly.
What's that?
This is a dark place. This isn't. This is.
This was not meant to be a dark thing.
No, so it's non-traditional. But what have you ever dealt with agar, like the seaweed extract?
Oh, I know. I haven't played with it, but
so the fun thing about agar, if you ever use as a gelatin substitute, so most vegetarians will use that instead of regular gelatin, is that it doesn't melt at such a high temperature. And so you can actually manipulate hot jellies. There is such a thing as a hot jelly. And you can get some real science-based. Imagine if I could get a diced hot turkey jelly inside the pasty.
Ooh.
Like a burst of jelly dice. I mean, that's very sciencey.
But I still want my
100%.
liquid and the fat stuff, the juiciness to come from that
100%.
gravy.
I'll make you a normal pasty. But I will probably never be able to produce this, but that would be amazing. Because
it's like the soup dumpling of pasties.
there is, if there was something like on my gravestone I'd like to be known for as the thing I've made the best ever in my life, it is probably my turkey gravy.
Yeah.
My turkey gravy is second to none. I say that 100% big-headed. I love my turkey gravy.
Right. And we talked about this extensively in the Thanksgiving podcast.
Yep.
So if you're curious, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's
Listen.
a good dive into it.
Right.
The turkey gravy, I mean, we get the privilege of using like 120 turkey spoons to make this is not something you can recreate at home in a significantly exercised way. But I've got to say, like, that'd be interesting. A chilled hot jelly inside there. I haven't done that in a long time. That's very like 1990. Sorry, that might be 2005. Like that's El Boulé kind of land.
Yeah, and inside a pasty crust too, right?
That holds it together.
Yeah, right. Without the crust getting doughy or
it
wet,
definitely would have its moment in the sunshine, but it would taste amazing. Like get that burst of warm jelly.
Yeah. Right. No, I think soup dumpling, but pasty. Right.
Yeah. You're making me feel okay about the pasty being a dumpling.
Oh,
I had a bit of a feeling about it. But you are very right. It does meet all the criteria of being the pasty, of being a dumpling.
And again, thanks to my friend Deanna Fox for setting me straight on.
I wonder what the pasty filling in a real dumpling would taste like.
A real dumpling? They're all real dumplings.
Okay. But like instead of a baked dough, if we took this filling and put it in like a pierogi dough, or we put it in a dumpling dough.
Oh.
I mean,
but again, the dumpling. It's
Then you could inject it with the turkey gravy.
or you could inject it because I think the gravy it was it was a beef gravy I
Yep.
believe, right?
Yep, yep,
So,
yep,
right,
yep.
yeah, beef gravy.
Well, that's when you get that really salty, like OXO cube kind of flavor.
So I was trying to buy Lee some time because I think we're running out of time. Do you have any burnings to?
I mean, there's plenty of places where you can get Green Mountain seed potatoes, but
Sure.
you have to grow them yourself.
Yes, you do.
I haven't found any stores or anything.
Commercially grown, they don't. You can ask most, like, I know there's the
I-
Chelsea mill in Chelsea, like the seed mill. You can order them. I know you can order them, but no one commercially grows them. They're a pain in the butt,
Yep.
as I know as a grower.
So I don't see any stores that stock them per se.
Yeah,
but
the closeness you get is maybe one of your farmers market, maybe like an Agricole or an Argus, like a community store that sells them. But even then, they're so good. I feel like a potato grower would be like, nope.
So I feel like we should be wrapping this up.
We should be wrapping this up.
But I
Is-
can say it's a type of white potato, and it's a late season variety of potato. And
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what the potato season is, but it's a late season variety. It's hardy. It's resistant.
They're still in the ground for me. I mean, they're still in the buckets right now. I haven't dug them up
hardy,
yet. The
it's
plants.
resistant, yeah.
Well, you wait for the plant to die out into that world. Back in the wild pasty land,
Yes.
is there any last burnings for us in the pasty land of what this is?
Well, I think it's encouraging to hear that that pasties are spreading out beyond the Upper Peninsula and have made the jump long ago.
You and I can go
from-
to Utah.
Right, right from,
One other thing I found, so out in Utah, it was the silver miners that brought it.
oh, that
And
makes sense.
In
Right, right.
Wisconsin, it was the lead miners.
How did it not become a gold rush thing? That's kind of sad. Because
Yeah,
then
right.
pasties could have got into the mainstream.
Well, I feel like in Gold Rush, you are in water a lot, so you're not as dirty. You are dirty, but like you're in water.
I see what you get. We're not really in a mine. We're just mostly surface mining at that
That's-
point.
that's right.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep,
that
yep,
makes
yep,
sense.
yep.
See, you're really a miner at heart in that. What it is. So
Right.
Go-
So I was encouraged by that and by sort of growth and experimentation. But I think what I would like to encourage folks to do is to actually really get up to the Upper Peninsula if you get a chance.
including me.
Right, including you, right? To try them, and if you can't, right, to know that that here at Zingerman's Bakehouse, there's a really good, solid example.
Yeah, if you can't make it up there, and this isn't, I know we all work at Zingerman's, you listen to our podcast, and we always will talk about some kind of Zingerman's product. We work here. This isn't really just a pitch for it. This pastry is so good. Like, the pastry on this pasty is killer. I think that what I'd want is the same thing. I wish I'd crossed the bridge. I have not crossed the bridge yet.
It's far.
It is far, and we're usually very busy. And in the wedding season is all the summertime, and by winter, I definitely don't want to cross the bridge into the UP. Sometimes you can't. I would say like pasty and the rutabaga world would be something I'd want you to. For those people listening, there have to be a lot that haven't even experienced rutabaga. Like, what is that? I think that that's the vegetable, that this is the place it had its biggest hits. And I think that it has a place in our food system where it needs to be.
And encourage people to be bold. Try something new. Get out of that comfort zone because it sounds scary, but it's flippin' delicious.
Yeah, and if you want to have a cheeseburger pasty, I'm completely supportive of you going down the cheeseburger world of where we are.
But have a bite of the traditional first.
All right, as we close up, you're going to hear us all eating. But thank you so much. You have a great day. Thank you, my lovelies, for tuning in and listening to today's episode of the Heartland Hot Dish podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more listeners just like you. Until next time, keep savoring the flavors of the Heartland and sharing the love for this vibrant community. Take care and stay connected.